Okay. Okay, we're good to go. Okay, good morning, everyone. It's my delight to and privilege to kick off this design workshop titled Jumpstarting or Reviving the Job Market. My name is Foluswari Bisala. Thank you for honoring our invite to share your extensive experience with us during this session. Now, resting on the three pillars of the NESG, which is collaboration, impact, and execution. This design workshop has been deliberate about bringing in subject matter experts into the room, though virtually, to discuss and deliberate on what it will take to revive Nigeria's job market. So the unabated increase in unemployment over the last few years has been quite alarming, with direct impact on poverty rates, social vices, restiveness of youth, and also crime. Now, if we go back and look at the recent NSAS riot, it provides further proof that if this trend isn't addressed, it could become a lot more chaotic for us as a nation in the future. As we speak, the current unemployment rate in the country is about 27.1%, up from about 23.1% in 2018 and 18.8% in 2017. Then the COVID-19 pandemic has also made things a lot worse. According to surveys conducted over the last few months, 42% of the people that were surveyed actually had jobs before COVID-19 that do not have jobs. Other estimates show that as much as 3.4% of the working population has been adversely impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, if we focus further on the youth, the people between age 25 and 34 that form the bulk of our current workforce, the unemployment rate with them is even higher. Recent estimates shows as high as 30.7%. Sadly, even women are also carrying the big brunt of this. We currently have over 12.2 million Nigerian women that are unemployed. Now, just to put go a bit deeper in terms of the numbers, so we know the gravity of what we need to deal with. If you have, based on our current population, and you estimate that we have a workforce of about 80.2 million Nigerians, the current unemployment rate means that we have about 21.7 million Nigerians that are willing to work but cannot secure gainful employment. Now, this is greater than the population of 35 of Africa's 54 countries. Now, if we maintain this trend and we project into the future, considering various things that because of COVID-19 pandemic, it is estimated, positive estimates that we will probably have a decline in GDP of about 4.1% this year. We have a year-on-year annual population growth of about 2.6%, which means that by 2050, we will probably have a population of about 400 million plus, and we currently have over 100 million Nigerians living in poverty. Now, all these indicators show that if we don't address this unemployment issue, it will become a crisis, if not currently a crisis. Now, there is an old adage that the only way to eat an elephant is to break it into smaller pieces. So to address this challenge, what we've done is to create 3 design workshops led by experienced discussion leaders that will go in and deliberate over the 60 minutes on how best do we address the specific issues. So we have created 3 key discussion groups. I will introduce those topics and also introduce discussion leaders very quickly. I will give time for further detailed introduction within the breakout groups. So the first group or session is called Reskilling and Upskilling the Workforce, which will be moderated by Funke Amobi. Now, a big concern is that our growing population, if not well equipped to generate income for themselves could quickly become a liability. Sadly, as we speak, only 1 out of every 4 students that applies to university can be accommodated. And even out of this privileged few, they graduate with very little skills on entrepreneurship and large gaps that limit their ability to add value to labor employers. We will go into the sessions and discuss what are those gaps and how best do we, close that and equip our workforce to be a lot more productive. Then we also have a session on building capacity and boosting participation in the gig economy as well. This will be led by Diwara Oladipo. Now, technology and the gig economy is changing, creating a lot of commerce opportunities and also changing the way people work and the way people view work. Now, Nigeria clearly must develop policies, frameworks to ensure that we're not left behind, that Nigerians are skilled up and they also have an opportunity to benefit from this emerging gig economy. So that particular discussion group will go in and look at what will it take to bridge the skill gap, specifically in that sector, and create opportunities for Nigerians to partake in that growing phenomenon. And the third group will be focusing on transitioning the nation's workforce from the informal to formal sector and promoting sectors with the largest employment potential. This will be moderated by Dr. Olatunde Adekoya. Now, traditionally, small businesses are the biggest employer. They employ the largest number. So it's literally impossible to create employment without supporting the growth and setup of new businesses. But you notice that many businesses in Nigeria are small, they're not growing, and they employ between 6 to 20 people. So the whole idea is to see how do we transition many of these businesses from informal to the formal sector where they're more structured and they have a bigger capability to grow and employ people. Now, over the next 60 minutes, we'll leave you in the able hands of your discussion leads. Please feel free to share your ideas, debate. The whole idea is that we must come out of those sessions with some clear roadmap that we can engage and recommend to the government on how to address those 3 pillars that we strongly believe will impact the ability to create jobs for the semi Nigerian youth. Now, very, very shortly, you would have a pop-up on your screen that will indicate which rooms you should break into. Please ensure your microphones are muted while in the rooms to reduce the level of distraction. If you would like to make a contribution, you will see a button on your, I think, lower right-hand side of your screen that allows you to raise up your hand. Then the discussion leader will give you the floor. We also have rapporteurs that will keep track of what is happening in the room. You will get a notice and a reminder once it's 10 minutes and 5 minutes for the session to end. Then we will come back into the main session. So I suggest that once you get your 10 minutes reminder, it's a good time to start wrapping up. So you have some summary that we can share with the group. So yes, then please, to ensure that there's fluid conversations and we can communicate with each other, ensure that you have your names on your Zoom link so that people can refer to you by name. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much again for honoring our invite. I would hand over to the Secretariat now to break us into groups. Do have fruitful deliberation. And I look forward to getting your feedback in the next 60 minutes. Thank you very much. So you should have a link now. If you have a problem with the link, please just unmute and let us know and we will support you with that. Okay, oh, wow, I can see Funke's team is back. Brilliant.
Yes, we're back.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We're still expecting members of the other team. I know everybody's on a tight schedule. We're working to release everyone by 1:30 as promised. So we would have, so I think you just use that time to prepare for your 5 minutes debrief to the entire group. So you will be going first, since you probably will have had a bit more time to prepare your presentation. So once we, okay, I think another group is just coming.
It's our rapporteur.
Okay. So how would they get the stuff from the rapporteur?
Yes.
Okay, we'll share a screen. Okay, brilliant. Okay.
Oh, you share the screen.
Okay,
brilliant.
So thank you. Yeah. So thank you very much. I had the opportunity to hop from room to room. I was quite delighted with the quality of engagement. In fact, I got stuck in some of the rooms because I came in at very exciting times. So would like to express the gratitude on behalf of NESG, for your time, your commitment, and also the great insights that were shared. We take your contributions, to heart. We would fine-tune the communique, share it, send it back to you to look at it and give us your feedback before it is adopted as an engagement tool for the government for policy development along the areas that were highlighted during the various conversations. So very quickly, we're going to have the debriefs. Then I also know the magnitude of the tasks that were given to the groups and the fact that you had very limited time to work on this. So if something comes to mind once the call is over, please feel free to push a mail to Femi. If you have new ideas, you come across, you're setting things that you feel that will enrich the conversations that you had, feel free to share it with Femi. We'll just quickly adopt it and include it in the final communique as well. So we'll have 5 minutes feedback from each of the group, just to summarize what went on and give us an idea in terms of what you'll be expecting from the group. So I'll start with the upskilling and reskilling. The rapporteurs, should please share your screen so that discussion leaders can pick up and read from the screen. Thank you very much. So Funke, over to you.
Thank you very much indeed. So we had some excellent deliberations. To be honest, by far the most robust of the subjects that I've had the opportunity to be in. So we looked at, what are the key areas for reskilling in Nigeria? And we actually looked at, local opportunities for reskilling and upskilling, what policymakers can do, what organizations can do, and particularly low-wage workers, how they can be helped to transit. We also then talked about reskilling infrastructure. How can a reskilling infrastructure be developed in organizations and across Nigeria in such a manner that can adapt to the future, enable us foster more deliberately the subject of inclusion and addressing the professionals and the individuals who would really want to, go up the ladder in a continuously changing world. We also finalized by broadly just talking around what our broad thoughts around the subject, in general. And interestingly, we came up with some very pointal issues on areas we thought will be priority for reskilling in Nigeria to change the dial. The first was technology and digital skills. And, the subject was, came to the fore in particular on the heel of the fourth industrial revolution and the fact that digital literacy is really at the core. We talked about how COVID-19 has accelerated this space. We talked about the tech startup industry that is actually receiving a whole lot of investment coming from, coming from the financial services environment. And we believe that a lot of this going into paying for, buying skills, paying for, scarce skills that are required indeed to thrive, to get the industry to thrive. So we thought that, already there's a gap in that space, and focusing on that area and enabling the investment which is going there from the financial sector to indeed be, fruitful and valuable will be very useful to zoom in on tech and digital skills. Interestingly, we also talked about agriculture. The clear driver being the fact that there continues to be food shortage in an environment where there is the opportunity for production. And so we thought reskilling and upskilling in this area, agriculture, potentially would present an opportunity to get the nation's workforce a lot more productive productively engaged, such that we can shift the employment indices. Thirdly, on this subject of, focus on areas that we can focus on was indeed the subject of learning agility, which pulled a lot of, deliberate engagement. And this was the subject of how do you get the individual concerned to learn and relearn in the subject of becoming more employable. So there was a lot of contribution around ensuring indeed that we get the worker to understand, or the potential worker to understand, how to learn and relearn. And we indeed talked about the worker himself or herself understanding that the biggest responsibility to raise the employability bar sits with them. We talked about understanding the persona of the Nigerian youth, because indeed the average workforce today has 4 generations at work. So we talked about understanding how this youth we're talking about indeed is fit for purpose, fit for the future. So a continuous review of the curriculum to ensure that the requirements of today's workforce is brought into the curriculum, even whilst the worker is being developed for the workplace. We talked about the government also recognizing employability skills as a prerequisite, such that it could grant licenses, accreditation, and some form of deliberate identity, give some sort of identity to those who would provide employability skills, and ensure that there's a governance around standardizing who does this. So it's not just I say that I am an employability provider and that's who I am. It beyond that, there should be the governance requirement for wearing that badge, so we can be sure that the quality is as required. We looked at local opportunities and what policymakers can do differently, and we focused on a number of things. Vocational training being very important. We zoomed in on small, medium enterprises to say that this is a good time post-COVID to zoom in on this space and provide some business development support to them. Intentionality, we thought, was the answer. If we do need to ensure that people get trained and upskilled to be able to advance their careers, we thought that we had to be intentional about it. We talked about the fourth industrial revolution and the readiness, ensuring that there's a clear roadmap that gets us there. We talked about strategic talent exports, and this being backed by policy, ensuring that, already we talk always negatively about the, flight of our skills. Oh, they're all offshoring to Canada, to the US. But here we're calling for an interesting mix, a strategic talent export policy that says, yes, we know that we've got good medical people. Yes, we know we've got good teachers. So how do we want to strategically export them so that it fits back at some point in 2 data sets, fits back at some point in the short term, and then fits back in the medium and long term when the development comes back to support the nation building. Next slide, please. We talked about some very interesting elements, and I thought I would have picked up by now the state of emergency. Okay, how can a reskilling infrastructure be developed? We thought international benchmarks should become our minimum standards. So international benchmarks, which is what technically our in-country skills will go looking for in the diaspora, we thought should become our minimum standards internally. So a platform that aggregates demand and supply of who's got the skill and who's looking for the skill, pull them together, and international benchmarks should become the minimum standards. We advocate for public and private sector partnership, private sector-led partnerships that would really be promotes the practice of incentivizing the private sector to create jobs. Job creation should be incentivized so that people will then know that, via these partnerships, we are adding value in this regard. We talked about intentionally funding the future of work. Specifically, a future of work department should be encouraged in each organization. I mean, there are countries today that have the future of work ministry. It's a ministry of, human resources. like in UAE. I know that it exists in Singapore as well. It exists. So we're calling here for the future of work department to be established at the private sector level, and we're calling for curriculum change for the junior secondary school and technical skills and technical schools, such that employability bar will be raised even from then, and we're catching it early. Finally, and more broadly, we called for declaring a state of emergency. And I think that was my favorite, to be honest. Declaring a state of emergency for unemployability when we have unemployment figures going to 30%. It is indeed a state of emergency. We also asked that job creation be incentivized. We gave good example of how Stanbic IBTC could partner with the likes of Poise and Decagon, who are already in the subject of building and raising the employability bar and getting people ready for jobs. And then they feed them into the private sector. So that partnership already exists before the job is done. And on this note, I would like to thank you for the opportunity to deliberate this very, very topical subject and in the development of this of our country. And we hand over to Nigeria Economic Summit Group to help us bring this to reality. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Funke, and her capable panelists. Thank you very much. Very detailed. Okay, so we'll jump to the building capacity in and boosting participation in Nigeria's gig economy. So, Diwari, you have the floor. So, please, can you project her group's summary, please? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Felicia. Thank you to everyone who was a part of the work studio, sharing their contributions around how we can build capacity in the gig economy. Our discussion really just started out talking about the definition of what the gig economy is and how the world has actually really moved from just being gig economy to talent economy. And we had mentioned during the discussion that the gig economy was more of the platform being a differentiator and the talent being an enabler. And we've moved more to the economy where the talent is the differentiator and the platform is just an enabler. The very first sort of discussion was around strategies that could be developed to ensure sort of like an open and stable environment for gig, or as we then call them, talent economy. And we did speak about certain very salient, interesting points. First was around identifying like role deficits within the economy and just training people to ensure that they are connected to jobs. So the first thing will be, what are these role deficits that exist within the economy? And then we have organizations, private, public, being enabled and being sort of like enabled towards training for these role deficits with the ultimate purpose of connecting people eventually to jobs. We did also talk about identifying areas or locations or states within Nigeria that haven't quite received so much attention in terms of skill building and sort of like ensure that there is attention or assistance brought to skill building in those certain states. I know that the person who spoke around this time gave a very interesting example of what was being done in those states to sort of like help to talk about the point or sort of like support the point around what that state is doing in terms of skill building and telling other states to also, encouraging other states rather, to also look into the areas that are that sort of like role deficits within their state and then work towards active skill building in those states. Then we also spoke about encouraging a public, private, and development agency collaboration or partnership within the gig economy. A very interesting point was around how development, the person gave an example of how a development organization like GIZ, for example, is working with their institution, right, to train people that train young people or the youth within the country for them to then eventually get jobs. And then the person gave an example to say development organization is providing sort of like stipends for internship or apprenticeship for those young people, sort of like to serve as an incentive for them beyond the trainings to actually get into the economy and start to make use of the skills that they've learned. Then we also had interesting conversations, just sort of wrapping it up because we had a lot of thoughts. just something similar to what Mr. Mobi said within their work studio, as well as something that came up within ours, which was around exporting, sort of like strategic talent export of young people, so was as a means of contributing to the GDP of the country. We also had interesting conversations about the rise in business process outsourcing, and it's an area that the nation can tap into. I know we had conversations about, especially within the technology space, of a lot of brain drain, where there's training has gone on, and then training and certification and education has gone on, and then people leave the country to go to other countries to use the skill set that it is that they've learned. So there are conversations arise around the government sort of like facilitating or encouraging business process outsourcing, such that the talent who have learned, who have gained of this skill set, can actually be within the economy and be working outside the shores of the economy via the gig or the tech platforms. We also spoke about incentives for certifications and the need for development of local certifications as well. Idea being that a lot of global certifications are quite expensive, and they need to come together to actively walk through a process of creating local certifications might also be relevant to the gig economy. We spoke about the country thinking, the government thinking about friendly policies, both fiscal policies and other sort of interventions to ensure that the young people who are working within this talent economy or gig economy are not frustrated within the process. Finally, within that comment we spoke about, or within that question, we did talk about international benchmark for content and curriculum. It's very important that whatever content or is curriculum that is being used for training are effectively benchmarked against international standard. And then we did talk about the other major question we're able to zoom in on, because we didn't have too much time, was talking around infrastructure, right? So what infrastructure policies or framework should be considered for a successful gig economy? We did speak about three major things, and I'll just sort of like categorize them. It's that there was one very interesting point that someone made, and I'll just say it right out, just as the person had said it, which was the person had mentioned that it was important to democratize internet access, right? That the internet infrastructure is very important, or is a big part of the gig or the talent economy. And it's important that the talent or people within this economy get access to cheap, affordable internet for them to be effectively able to carry on their work. We also did talk about curriculum change, around embedding policies around curriculum development within, like curriculum change within the secondary and tertiary institutions, such that if the future of work, right, is the talent economy, if the future of work is the gig economy, then right from secondary school, from the tertiary institutions, we need to sort of like embed within this curriculum topics that speak to topics that are around the fourth industrial revolution, that sort of allows young people to sort of learn about these things before they even get to the point where they're looking for jobs. We did also speak about extracurricular activities, about the government investing in skill building within the educational system, sort of like embedding it both into the curriculum and also sort of like as a part of extracurricular activities. And then finally, we spoke about the government just working through opportunities or creating opportunities within the country to power our own economy. Going back to that conversation, very huge conversation around brain drain, especially for the youth that are within the gig and the talent economy. And it's just about creating visible and feasible opportunities for young talent to see reasons to stay within the country, being provided access to affordable data, access to constant and regular power supply, which are like the two major areas or infrastructure areas where a lot of talent or people who work within the gig and talent economy struggle with. It's that access to high-speed internet, which is like 4G, 5G internet on board, access to cheap and affordable internet, which is ability to be able to then afford the internet that you get, even if you get a 4G or 5G. And finally, it's that reliability of power supply, which is just having power supply to power your devices, be it mobile, be it laptops, be it actual computers, to be able to work within the talent or the gig economy. So
Thank
on
you
this note,
very
I want
much.
to say thank you to everyone who connected to our workstation. We had a very amazing time. Thank you for your wonderful contribution.
Okay, thank you very much, Deborah, for that detailed summary, and thank you to your wonderful panelists as well. Just before I call in the third group, it's interesting the level of overlap between the two presentations. Similar themes are coming up. I'm hearing things like demand-based learning, running an audit to know where the skill gaps are. People are talking about affordability, accessibility, and also benchmarks to ensure that the learning standards are of a setting. And I'm also hearing about collaboration across different sectors has been essential to get this done as well. So even though we're looking at it from different perspectives, there seems to be some common overlaps, which will reinforce whatever recommendations that will come out of this at the end of the day. And interestingly, by the time I call in the third group now, you'll discover that similar things like infrastructure, while I sat in the group, they were talking about power, they were talking about internet connection as necessary requirements also to support the economic growth. So just to get feedback from our final group, I'm going to call Dr. Adekoya as well. Please, can you project their summary? So, thank you very much, Doctor. You have the floor. It seems you are muted, sir. You're muted. You have to unmute. Thank you.
Thank you very
Brilliant.
much. It seems we have a very wonderful team, and everybody was very participatory. I think we started by focusing at least more on the non-oil growth in terms of the economy, in terms of transiting from the nation workforce from informal to formal, because the issue of the oil sector, they don't need much incentive for transition because a lot of resources. So we believe the government, we should focus more on the non-oil growth. Then the second thing is the urgency for this transition and that is required, and in terms of the coalition that is required to be able to get the type of result or outcomes that we want, like those things that we need to have been done by yesterday and the one that we need today and the immediate future. And then the third element in terms of the opening is to look for action so that this will not be another talking shop. So we need an action for implementation and the right type of incentives to translate talking into visible results. So the team, we look at all the issues that were discussed, and it boils down to the issue, how do we strengthen the existing system to accommodate within the formal system, to accommodate the informal sector, and this can be done through partnership, collaboration, cooperation between the state and the non-state actors, especially those that are relevant to specific sectors, which we discuss. And the issue of incentives also to bring this transition and the change of behavior that we need in terms of how the government incentivize the formal or informal sector so that they can shake hands and then to be able to achieve in terms of bridging that is required. For example, under the National Skills Qualification Framework, that it doesn't really matter wherever you are, once you can contribute, then you'll be able to fix it into different framework of the skills qualification framework. And of course, the issue of resources, like all the other groups have said, there's need for more money for infrastructure, energy, all those interconnectivity and so on. But the bottom line is there is need also to link these resources to a measurable and verifiable result. Because if the resources that we have now, we cannot talk about how many number of people are connected, how many people have the tablets, like the type of thing they did to meters, that the government see it as emergency and supply meters free of charge. How we wish that this will be done for tablets too, for connectivity. So like something that we should be able to see there. The team, all the members of the team are also raised the issue in terms of how do we make sure that we have focus on the appropriate sectors so that digitalization of the workforce in terms of improving the quality, the quantity, and bringing innovation, additional financing to support the informal sectors, all these were discussed. We also discussed the issue of gender, and it was very, very clear that there's need for more participation, inclusiveness, and of course, it will not just happen on its own. They need to provide the right type of incentives for the women to be part of this informal sector and the linkages that we are looking in terms of informal and formal. And of course, the issue of data too is very, very important, labor market information system, because whatever you cannot measure, you cannot improve. So it's not enough to say, oh, we want this to be better. What percentage are we talking? By the time you are saying that less than 5% or 10% of women are participating, then that tells its own story itself. So we believe the issue of data, and of course for gender, the issue of mentoring and coaching for those people who have already achieved within the informal and formal sector, and of course bridging between the formal and informal sector, to start talking somebody who start as a carpenter and eventually become a professor of engineering. I think those are the type of good examples that can help people to see that that informal sector is not a dead end in terms of, and they talk about the value chain in terms of the furniture, some different types of sectors that are very, very important, like the furniture associations, the sector, the garment, the clusters that Nigeria can easily build on this, because the thinking is that for those people who are already having efforts that are doing something, then the government can see what they can do to catalyze, to incentivize them so that they can improve the quantity or the quality or bring innovation to what they are doing. And then it's so clear to everybody that government role is very, very important in terms of the enabling environment to be, and also to create a demand for the type of transformation that we want within the workforce. And then a part of individual, each sector too, one jacket does not fit all. There should be a cross-cutting type of effort between unit cost, the quality of what is being produced, and innovation, so that we can scale up of whatever we are doing within the government. And they identify some factors that will be very, very useful within the group, and this will be very good. Top on it is the issue of food production, processing, in linkage to the agriculture, the issue of the manufacturing, carpentry and furniture, construction, manufacturing, and of course the mechanic, automotive, and manufacturing, that all this will be the areas of the low carrot that the government can build on, and more importantly, the digital area and the real estate, that where construction is taking place massively from the government side. I will not repeat all the other things that have been said by the other team in terms of how the issue of energy tax and subsidy to be able to create the type of improvement in the informal sector and the linkage with the formal sector. But on energy, it's so clear to us that the way to go is the renewable energy. And this one came out clearly in terms of solar, wind, for the informal sector to be able to drive the economy. And the second one is the issue of infrastructure in terms of energy. Like I said, there's need to really make sure that there is enough support. The way it's being done by DSTV installer all over the country, to see how we can also have this type of support for everybody in all over Nigeria to create a critical mass of people that can help drive the economy in the informal sector. And we also talk about essentially the terms of proof of concept. That is, it's not enough to talk in terms of action, but it's to celebrate and talk about those who are already achieving success. And so that what do we do to scale it up, to widen the scope, to bring in innovation to the existing body of knowledge and the performance and whatever is being done, so that at least we can also be like those countries that have demonstrated that you can do a lot by diversifying your economy through the human resource, through this type of skills that the majority of the population, the poor, the unskilled, and the vulnerable groups can have. And we have example in Malaysia, we have example in Indonesia, and of course, even one of the developed countries years back, that's where we have the Dutch disease. Holland came to be an oil, and now they have become a very big country in other parts of the economy. So we discuss a lot of things, but like I said, the team are very, very resourceful, and I really appreciate everybody. And we agree that transiting from the nation from the workforce from informal to formal. We should narrow down to the informal apprenticeship schemes that are already existing all over Nigeria. That we should scale that one up. We have the master crafts people, participants. So what do we do to build their capacity? To strengthen the associations of mechanic, tailoring, fashion design, and all those people who are trying to do something and see what value can we add to all this type of thing. But for the formal apprenticeship, we should also encourage them, the companies that already have their own apprenticeship scheme. But the challenge there is that it can't take more of our people. But the informal apprenticeship through the masterclass participants and of course the associations of different sectors with the sector scale council, with the national skill qualification framework and accreditation of some of these sectors, then we'll be able to transit safely and successfully in a good environment from informal to formal economy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much, Dr. Adekoya and his wonderful panelists. So time is well spent or overspent. We're 15 minutes over plan time. So we'll be calling it a day. Thank you again for your participation. Thank you for honoring our invite. And thank you for the wealth of insight you have shared as well. It would be nice to, I will get Femi to share the details so that people can network after this and continue some of the excellent discussions you had on the platform, off the platform as well. Then as promised, we'll also send you the first draft to get your input into it before we convert it into some policy document to engage the government. So thank you very much for your time. Enjoy the rest of your day and continue to enjoy the rest of the conference with us. Have a wonderful